Good evening, and thank you everyone so much for joining us this evening. My name is Josh Brandon, and I'm acting director at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, Manitoba. And really want to thank everyone for joining us on this latest conversation as a part of the Speaking Up series. Today's conversation will be on homelessness, and we have a great pair of speakers joining us today. But firstly, I do want to acknowledge that this event is being broadcast from Treaty 1 territory, traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. The electricity powering this event mostly comes from Treaty 5 and Treaty 3 lands that continue to be impacted by ongoing hydro development. And we also recognize that the water that's so critical for keeping us alive that we use here in Winnipeg comes from Shoal Lake in Treaty 3 territory. And in acknowledging these lands, we're reminded of the deep web of interconnections of peoples across Turtle Island and the deep historical and ongoing responsibilities we bear to help overturn the wrongs inflicted on the original stewards of this land. And thinking about those wrongs and those responsibilities, there's almost no issue that's more salient than the issue of homelessness. We know here in Winnipeg, over 70% of people experiencing homelessness are Indigenous. So this is a very important discussion that we're having. Speaking Up is a series that has been planned to create community engagement and discussion on some of these very important topics of research that the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives Manitoba has been involved in. At the CCPA, we conduct research on issues of public policy that aim towards building movements of social change. And over the years, we've developed a large body of research on housing and homelessness. And in our research and our connections with the Manitoba Research Alliance, we've also built up a really strong network of community activists working on housing and homelessness, without whom none of the research that we conduct at the CCPA would be possible. And so our two presenters today are both longtime activists on housing and homelessness, and I hope you'll enjoy the discussion today, and we will all learn something together and take steps towards making these changes possible. So the structure of the event today, we're going to have 30 minutes for our guest speakers. This portion will be recorded and can be viewed on our YouTube channel. There will be a recording that will be available. You can share it to people who weren't able to make it today. But after the formal part of the presentation, the recording will be stopped after the presentation, and then participants can join in the discussion. And there will be approximately 40 minutes of discussion with everyone participating. So without further delay, I'll introduce our two speakers today. First, we have Mitch Bourbonniere. He's a community helper. He has long been inspired to help others find their voices. He's a founding member of the Bear Clan Patrol, and he also volunteers with Ojigita Pimatsawan, Kimawatan, OPK, and the Mama Bear Clan, Drag the Red, and many other organizations. He has received 2 Governor General Awards for bravery and meritorious service, and the Canadian Humane Association's Bronze Medal for bravery to save a young woman's life in December 2016. In July 2020, Mitch was honored with the Order of Manitoba. And our second speaker is Grace Laing. Grace is the coordinator of Mama Bear Clan, a woman-led community outreach patrol based in North Point Douglas area and a longtime resident of North Point Douglas. She will be speaking about the work Mama Bear Clan does to support our unsheltered relatives on patrol. So thank you, everyone, and I'll let Mitch go now and say a few words to give us a bit of context about the situation of homelessness here in Winnipeg.
Thank you, Josh. I really appreciate your opening and your land acknowledgement. So my role this evening will be just to kind of give you a bit of what the landscape is out there currently and where things are heading as well. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about how I'm implicated in the unsheltered community. So I work for a few different organizations on this topic. One of them is Mount Carmel Clinic, where I work in the ACT program, which is a Housing First initiative, where previously unsheltered people get a home, physically get a home for the first time, and are supported, as many of them live with trauma, with mental illness, and with addiction. So we provide a wraparound support for those folks, and hopefully the trajectory goes forward where they look after, they become independent and don't need us. And that is the goal, not to be needed. So that is Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. I support our 80 constituents, our participants in that program. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm with what's called a Downtown Community Safety Partnership, which is a 24-hour presence in the inner city of Winnipeg and downtown. They have 3 teams, a connect team that does the patrolling, a core team that does a social work case management function, getting people to the resources that they need, and a MAC 24 team, which is a quasi-paramedic type service we do to take some of the pressure off first responders and police. I'm also with Grace, a captain with the Mama Bear Clan, and we're out on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday evenings. And this topic is near and dear to my heart. I have a 36-year-old son who I raised on my own as a single dad, who struggles with schizophrenia, lives with schizophrenia, and he's been out there. He's been lost. He's been a missing person. He's been hospitalized over and over again. He's had experience with police, with that life out there. So when I'm really on a street level guy, so I'm literally walking the streets of Main Street and downtown and the inner city every day, and I see my son in lots and lots of people out there. And it can be heartbreaking, but also heartwarming when we have some beautiful interactions with our relatives out there. I do a walk on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Anybody can come and walk with us. We meet at 9:55 a.m. at City Hall at Main and William, and we walk up and down Main Street. We do a community cleanup. We pick up needles. We hand out food and good cheer, and we make relationship with our brothers and sisters on the street. And that is attended by a variety of groups. And there's a lot of non-funded, organic community groups out there that are doing the work. Bear Clan, Mama Bear Clan, the Thunderbirds. It goes on and on. There's probably, Community 204 initiative. There's probably about a dozen organic, unfunded groups out there that are just purely volunteers that work with the people. And then we have really 3 more formal services that we have many services out there for our unsheltered brothers and sisters. The 3 biggest shelters would come out of Siloam and Salvation Army and Main Street Project. But in terms of outreach, in terms of having a mobile team, in terms of having a van, in terms of walking and going to the bridges and to the riverbanks. There are 3 formal organizations that tend to do that, and that's Main Street Project and Street Links on the east side, with Marion Willis Moorburg House, and the Downtown Community Safety Partnership. So there's, just for your information, those folks are out there quite a bit, getting to know the unsheltered community and trying to meet needs. The unsheltered community is incredibly diverse, and I want to honor the people that actually voice that they have made a choice to be out there, and it is a choice for them. For others, it is not a choice. Addiction, mental illness, trauma have overtaken their lives, and we see actively psychotic people that either through mental illness or the effects of drugs like meth, who are not in touch with reality in different moments that we encounter them, and it is very heartbreaking. So we had 3 people die last year, and 4 or 5 people a year will die unsheltered in Winnipeg. Last year we had 3, 2 women and a man, all Indigenous. And it was basically during that -45 run that we had in mid-February. And that was heartbreaking. We saw people in bus shelters. We've seen people, and at this point, the city has decreed that people not gather under bridges. So that's been a new development recently in the last couple of weeks. But any waterway in Winnipeg on both sides of the banks will have camps, will have people. There's hundreds of camps, and it's not just the inner city. They stretch from one perimeter to the other, to the other, to the other. We get calls from Charleswood, we get calls from Transcona, South St. Vital, North Main. There are people everywhere that are unsheltered, and it's the population is exploding, and that is really a confluence of the pandemic and a burgeoning drug crisis in our city. And I know we're going to talk about housing, and we could always use more housing, but at this point, even if we had housing, there's a lot of folks that are unable, either through mental illness, psychosis, drug addiction, to maintain a home. So we're going to talk a little bit more about solutions later in the broadcast here. Go ahead, Grace.
Thank you, Mitch and Josh, and thank you for everyone for being here today and taking time to listen. My name is Grace. I'm the coordinator of Mama Bear Clan. So when I was asked to speak at this event about homelessness, I thought, where do I start? There's so many topics about homelessness that we could talk about. So I'll start by sharing a little bit about what Mama Bear Clan does. Mama Bear Clan patrols 3 days a week in the North Point Douglas, Higgins and Main area. Every patrol we take out a lunch bag, usually 100 each patrol, that has a water bottle, a sandwich, a granola bar, and a fruit cup. Typically, we see quite a bit of unsheltered people. A lot more have been moving into the community now that the bridges that they're no longer able to gather under bridges. They're, like Mitch said, going towards riverbanks. So we're doing our best to support them. What I really wanted to share with you guys today is my experience with a woman who was unsheltered, but she had left an amazing mark on me, and I'll never forget her. Her name was Carla Oatcheek. We were working with Carla to get her into the Doorways program that's at the Aboriginal Center. They offer a Housing First initiative to homeless people that are experiencing barriers to finding housing. It's a great program. The only thing is its intake takes 1 to 2 weeks. So every time we would visit her, it was last winter, it was -40. We would give her what she needed, blankets, food, um, if she needed a ride to go somewhere that night, or, just letting her know the weather and saying, hey, just make sure you go to a shelter. She would say, hey, yeah, I'm okay. I have somewhere warm to go if needed. Um, and we were working with her to get her into the intake program. She had her appointment the following Thursday. So we went to visit her on Friday, brought her everything she needed. Um, and it was actually her birthday that day. And she asked for a few more lunch bags for later, and we said yes, of course. And I said, I'll see you next week, and I want to hear about your appointments. And that was that. Few days go by, I look at the news to hear that a woman had died in an encampment. And I was struggling because I had a feeling it was Carla, but we didn't know for sure. We went to the site. Police wouldn't tell us anything. They didn't release her name, so we had no idea. I tracked down her mom, who I'm still in contact with today, and she confirmed, yeah, it was Carla. So I wanted to share this because it's an example of how much effort and time and resources you put in, but if there's no fast track resource or no housing initiative that can get these people a safe place to live in a timely manner, all it takes is one night in -40 for something to go wrong. But I'm still in contact with Carla's mom. Mama Bear Clan had a vigil for her. We went to her funeral. I actually just called Carla's mom to get her permission to share the story with you guys today. And she left behind 3 beautiful daughters and a very loving family. So she will forever be in my heart. And it's just one example of how wrong it can go. But thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I'm open to answering them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Grace, and thank you for sharing Carla's story with us. I think it's really important for all of us to remember that the people experiencing homelessness are individuals. They have names. Sadly, far too many of those dreams are cut short by the institutional failures we have in our society to provide housing, to provide supports for people, to provide the basic necessities that should be a right for every resident in our society. And Canada's one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and to see the conditions that so many of our relations live in, and seeing what people are suffering, it is heartbreaking, and it really represents the deep moral failure we've had as a society to grapple with this issue of homelessness. In the past couple of years during the pandemic, I think people are starting to see how important homelessness is as an issue and how important it is that we develop solutions to this. We recently had a federal election here in Canada, and the topic of housing came up more often, more frequently than it has in federal elections in many years. Every level of government now is, I think, feeling pressure to start dealing with this issue. But we know, and I know from your work, Grace and Mitch, that this isn't a new issue that's just been sprung on us as a result of the pandemic. It's maybe become a bit more visible because people are not congregating in the spaces that they used to congregate in, often away from the public eye, but are now more frequently in public spaces on riverbanks and bus shelters and places that they're visible. But this is a long-standing crisis that we faced here in Winnipeg. And I think back to the 2018 Winnipeg street census. I was involved in conducting that census, where we tried to contact as many people experiencing homelessness and try to collect some basic data about them and some aspects of their stories for a project. And it's supposed to be a project we do every 2 years. It's being led, the next iteration will be led by End Homelessness Winnipeg. But because of the pandemic, it's being delayed probably till next year, it looks like. But in 2018, we were able to contact over 1,500 people experiencing homelessness. And that's not even including all the people who are precariously housed or in core housing need, which are tens of thousands of other people. And we know that the people that we did contact as part of the street census was just the tip of the iceberg, because that was just people who were accessing services, who were available to be contacted. So a lot of the people experiencing homelessness in ways that are less visible, like if they are couch surfing from place to place, they weren't part of the survey often. But just even so, to know that there were in 2018 at least 1,500 people experiencing homelessness, likely many more, is really astounding. But we know that those numbers have actually increased over the last 2 years, and this is actually a growing crisis that we need to grapple with. We know some of the things that are sociologically and that are risk factors for why are people more likely to be homeless, who's more likely to be homeless than others. One of the things that we find is that homelessness isn't just one age group that is that's affected by homelessness. There's young people, there's old people, but we do know that the age that people most likely begin to experiencing homelessness is right at age 18. And a big factor there is the connection with people aging out of care of child and family services. We know that the vast majority, 90% of people kids in the care of child and family services are Indigenous, and that's there needs to be those supports to help people through those transitions. We know that 2/3 of the people experiencing homelessness in Winnipeg are Indigenous, and 60% of whom grew up in a First Nations community. So we need to have those links connecting Indigenous communities, the supports for when people come to Winnipeg from those communities. Groups that are providing those supports need to have more resources. But we also know that there's a huge economic factor. We know that housing costs have just been skyrocketing over the past several years. The latest Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation report found that for a bachelor unit, the average cost now is $733, and it's for a 2-bedroom, it's $1,223 in Winnipeg. And these are likely underestimates because they don't reflect the units that are actually available for somebody who's just trying to find housing. Because if you've got, housing that's good quality and is affordable, you're not as likely to be moving potentially. So the housing that's vacant. So if you're working for an agency trying to find somebody housing, or if you're homeless and you're trying to find housing, though the units are likely even higher. So that's something that we need to have a much more social housing. There's been very little investment over the last few years in social housing, in rent geared to income housing. We put up the link to the coalition Right to Housing just a moment ago in the chat, and you can see there the many years of activism through that group, putting pressure on all levels of government for more housing supports, more investment in social housing. If you go back to before 2016, when there was a different government in power, there were starting to be some significant investments. About 1,500 units of social housing were created over the 5 years previous to that. And that has really just dropped off in the past few years. We also know that some of the existing housing that is in existence has actually been privatized in that period. We also know that rent assist, the housing, the money that's available for low-income people to obtain housing on the market, it just doesn't cover enough for basic housing needs. And CCPA has a number of research reports that I'd encourage you to look at. Jesse Hager's on the participant list I see here. He's done a number of these reports. I've worked with him on a couple of them. Shauna Plout as well. And Sarah Cooper, I don't know if she's here as well. She's done a lot of research on rent assist and social housing. And so what we do know is that we need to actually raise those levels so that it better reflects the actual housing costs. I think right now, for a single person not on disability, it was frozen for a number of years at $576 a month. Just this July, it went up for the first time in a number of years, but it only went up by $2. So that really doesn't help get you to the $733 for an average bachelor unit. But there is some promise. We've seen at the federal government, they're starting to make investments in a national housing strategy, and we need to keep pushing to make sure that the housing that's built through that doesn't just go to private corporations who are building housing that doesn't meet the needs of residents or communities, that doesn't meet the needs of low-income people. We need it to be directed towards housing that is actually affordable, that's affordable for all people, including people coming out of homelessness. And so one of the positive things we've seen, Right to Housing and Make Poverty History and a number of other coalitions have been working with the city of Winnipeg to push for a poverty reduction strategy. And I want to encourage everybody to have a look. I believe it's actually going to be released on the city's website tomorrow. And so have a look on the city's website. I know that Make Poverty History will be distributing more information about that. So look for that tomorrow and early next week about information. And also contact your city councilors about it, because on next Wednesday, the Executive Policy Committee of City Council will be considering the first poverty reduction strategy, and we really need to push our City Council to pass and implement a bold and effective poverty reduction strategy. And it needs to be met with resources and staffing required to implement it, so that there's progress that can be measured, and an inclusion of targets and timelines within that. Just a couple of highlights of things that the community groups have been pushing for a strategy that makes a difference. One of them is the need for a housing office. Right now, we just have one person in the city of Winnipeg working on housing, and that's research that we've helped with has shown that that's one of the lowest levels of all major cities in Canada. So we need to actually, to better represent the needs of housing here in Winnipeg, there should be at least 7 full-time staff at the city of Winnipeg. There needs to be a strategy to end homelessness within 10 years, where we're producing at least 150 units of social or supportive housing annually for people experiencing homelessness. And Mitch was talking about that earlier, about how, it isn't just providing a roof over somebody's head. We need the supports there, because people are experiencing trauma, they're experiencing mental health crises, and they need the community support if they're going to be successful in their housing. And then the third thing we really need to see happen is a commitment to eliminate core housing need, because unless we stem the flow of people at risk of homelessness, it's a never-ending crisis where people are falling into homelessness, and if we're able to get them out of homelessness, there's maybe 2 or 3 more people experiencing, on the brink of homelessness. So we need a strategy to eliminate core housing need within the next 10 years. And that means creating at least 3,000 units a year of new and affordable social housing, the provision of rent supports, and other programs in partnership with different levels of government. And we know it can be done. I think just this month, we saw in Germany, the city of Berlin, actually, there was a referendum, and citizens there voted to appropriate housing from private landlords that weren't providing the affordable housing, and making that available as a public resource, because it is an international obligation that Canada has to make housing a right. And we've signed on to it through many different protocols over a number of years. We have the tools in place to make it happen. We just need the community pressure and the political will to implement that. And I believe that we can end homelessness if we work together, and if we have that courage. So that was the comments that I have. And thank you so much, both Grace and Mitch, for your courage and for the amazing work that you're doing to make this happen. Because, I think without the work that you folks are doing, none of the research that we're doing here at the CCPA would be possible. None of the community activism would be possible. None of the social change and the policy solutions that we're talking about here today could be implemented. So thank you so much.